Welcome to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee. I'll call this meeting to order, joined by all of my colleagues. And I'd like to take multiple comment cards. In fact, all comment cards first. We'll just do that. We'll take all the comment cards. So what I'd like to do is, if there are multiple items, please put 2 minutes on the timer. And then if there is a general public comment, please put 1 minute in addition after the item, comments on the items. And so having said that, we will start with Wayne Spindler, who has all items. And so it's 2 minutes and then 1 minute for general public.
All right. So we got ourselves here, number one, Village Stakeholder Association. They sued your ass, didn't they, Mike Bonin? Yes, they sued Mike Bonin, and one of the reasons is because Mike Bonin is a piece of shit. That's why they sued him. Case number 19 STCP. It stands for, it's Latin for Mike Bonin is a piece of shit in Latin. 100 East Sunset Avenue, you done for? That's right, we got you. That's right. You ain't going to build nothing on number one. You can go to closed session with all the lawyers you want. We got Jacoby and Myers over here. Over here, we got Latham and Watkins. Over here, we got everybody. That's right. So one thing, there's a friendly amendment. Marquise Harris Dawson wants to be first on the record to say, Mike Bonin, get off dope and say nope to number one. Now we got to go the Women's Bridge Housing Facility at number 4. So that's David. Woo! Yes, it is. He's trying to help the ladies. Why is he trying to help women? Because one thing that David Rue hates is anybody accused of trying to have sex with an unconscious woman in a vehicle. This is a big thing, isn't it, Monica? Yes, it is. What am I talking about, Monica?
I don't know, Wayne.
That's right. Good. It's the right answer. Yes.
The items, please.
See, so remember that David Rue's making good with God, helping women because of past sins forgiven by the Pope himself personally. That's right. Now, we get there to the public comment shit. Now.
1 minute.
Now we get to the public comment shit. Oh, okay. I'll take that in a minute. Now, poverty and homelessness, what is that? It's what you do. And what do we got? We got, while I'm talking and there's a millions of dollars meeting, we got Mitchell Farrell stuffing his face like a pig. Yes, he's eating like a slob. That's right. I talked about this Friday, about the pigging out stuff, right? Now, he's skinny as a rail, and he eating and eating and eating, and Monica only got a bottle of water. So I move also that the future meetings, we have some coffee and condiments. Healthy, fresh fruits and vegetables for all of our homeless and poverty people. That's right. So anyway, remember, your asses are getting sued. You're being investigated by 3 grand juries now, I hear. And if you saw that car with Las Vegas plates, that's the FBI office coming to get you from Las Vegas. God, thank you, Fats.
Anne Maria McCall, speaking on one item. Item number 7.
Well, it definitely won't take 2 minutes. I am just here on behalf of the Refresh Spot. It is mine and many others' baby. I have been a part of the coalition that helped create this, along with hand in hand with City Hall. So I'm just here to support the motion of approving 544 Town Avenue as the new location for the Refresh Spot. So we would just greatly appreciate that in the community because it is going gangbusters and super successful. And I think the last time I was here, I said to all of you, this is something you should be bragging about. This is hugely successful. This is a win for all of you, and you guys should be tooting your horns about it because it's doing great. So support that motion, and let's keep this in Skid Row. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. McCall. This, it's important to all of us, so thank you for acknowledging that. We know it's important to our colleague, Mr. Weezar, as well. That brings us to Claire Reedy. 1 minute for general public comment.
My name is Claire Reedy, and I'm a local law student. I fully support LA Sanitation's plan to implement a community public health approach towards encampments. I have personally witnessed the intrusive and disruptive LA sanitation sweeps and the way in which they exacerbate the homeless crisis by using arbitrary measures to determine what waste should be discarded. This new plan helps create a less threatening experience by solely deploying the care teams and provides vital resources such as restrooms and public showers to encampment residents, thus giving individual autonomy back to these people who previously have had their rights and personal belongings stripped from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Isaacson. And Eric Isaacson, 1 minute for general public comment.
Thank you. I applaud LA Sanitation's acknowledgement that sanitation sweeps have a detrimental effect on our homeless population, and I welcome its measures to aid individuals experiencing homelessness, all while pursuing its own public health objectives. What is more, LA Sanitation has prioritized mental health awareness in its revised approach to staff training. In addition to these improvements, I also urge LA Sanitation to have regularly scheduled cleanup days. With ample notice, homeless individuals will be better able to ensure that their belongings are not inadvertently confiscated during sanitation sweeps. Thanks again.
Thank you. Gabriela Vasquez, 1 minute for general public comment.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Vasquez. I'm a local law student. I fully support the plan to provide regularized delivery of hygiene services to encampments, as well as trash receptacles and the introduction of outreach programs to support folks with varying needs. I also urge the city to end the presence of police during encampments and cleanups, encampment cleanups, because they only serve to further criminalize encampment residents. Our neighbors deserve a public health model that promotes long-term stability, opportunities for housing, and access to basic health needs. I also urge the council to rescind ordinances 5611 and 4118D because they have solely been used to criminalize the homeless for existing in the public eye. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Kendrick Rustad. And Kendrick, you filled out 2. Did you want
Sure.
1 minute for general public comment and then 1 minute for the other item? Okay.
Good afternoon. Kendrick Rustad. Running for City Council, District 14 in 2020, and then I'm also the creative director for KR Interior Design Group, where I specialize in creating environments for homes and businesses. So the houseless, their home is where the heart is. That's their tent or their car, whatever it may be. And when you move, it shakes up your brain. You're disoriented if you move. Get a new job, you have to learn to get along with new people, new environment. So bridge housing is just adding one more, shaking up someone's brain chemistry. I would suggest that you honor their home, the tent or their car, and have them. There's a parking lot program here in LA where they can, at churches and whatnot, I found one church that has a 3-story parking lot they're willing to offer, and have them move their home, their tent, or their car to this temporary. Do I continue for another minute?
And you fill out another one. Was it for a specific item?
Well, I can talk about mental health. Is that?
Well, but that's a general. So.
Oh, that's a general.
You can speak on a specific.
So the
agenda item.
Trash I hear people talking about. So basically, there's no reason for it. My friend's father takes care of all the trash collection in the San Francisco Bay Area. They seem to take care of it, and they have the similar little communities and the homeless problem as well. So, but it didn't get out of control. So that part I don't understand. There's no reason for it. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Luis Vergin or Virgin? I see it spelled differently. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So 1 minute for general public comment.
Cool. So my name is Luis Virgen, and I'm also a local law student. So I fully support the LA sanitation plan that will soon come to place, which is delivering hygiene services to the homeless encampments and providing regular cleanups and services. So I've personally seen the flaws in LA sanitation sweeps since they are consistent, and LA sanitation has too much discretionary power in determining whether or not something is considered to be waste. A lot of the LA sanitation workers are insensitive to the homeless crisis that is currently going on. So we need a method or a procedural process that sanitation uses to determine what is waste and what is not. Because the current power that they have is overpowering, and they just simply throw away everything. We need something similar to the parking restrictions, but with sanitation sweeps, where it is clear and visible to put people on notice, not just simply put a flimsy paper that people can easily throw away. Lastly,
You can say, wrap it up.
council members, with all due respect, 15 minutes is not enough to pack up all your home or belongings.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to keep everyone to the same amount of time. Tom Grode, or it might be Grody, but Tom, is it Grody? Grody. 1 minute for general public comment.
I just need a few seconds. I just want to thank you, Homelessness and Poverty, and especially Councilmember Weezar's office for the new location for the Skid Row Community Refresh Spot. We had two top priorities. One was more space, and the other was very close to the existing location. And this town location is an absolute bullseye on both of those.
Thank you. Thank you. So, colleagues, what we can do is we can take items 1, 2, 3, and 4 on consent, but they need to be read into the record first. Mr. Reef, if you would do so.
Thank you. Jack Reef, CLA's office. Item number 1, City Attorney and Municipal Facilities Committee reports relative to authorizing the General Services Department to negotiate and execute a lease between the city and the Los Angeles Metropolitan Transit Authority for a bridge housing facility to be located at 100 East Sunset Avenue. The committee recessed to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1 to confer with its legal counsel relative to the case entitled Venice Stakeholders Association versus City of Los Angeles Superior Court case number 19 STCP 00044. This case relates to the proposed bridge housing project at 100 East Sunset Avenue. And note for the record, added to the council file is additional information confirming the previous sequel analysis for the 100 East Sunset Avenue Venice Bridge home.
Thank you. So as I said, without objection, we can take those items on consent, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So, Mr. Chair, I still have to read 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, okay, of course. Sorry about that. I'm so concerned because we have to have members that are going to peel off because of obligations. So we're going to move through this meeting and not go into a 3-hour meeting like we did last time. But thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Item number 2, Municipal Facilities Committee report relative to a lease agreement with Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority for the city-owned property located at 1403 North Gardner Street for use as a women's bridge housing facility. Item number 3, Municipal Facilities Committee report relative to a lease agreement with the County of Los Angeles for the property located at 2817 South Hope Street for a term of 3 years for use as a temporary bridge housing facility. And last, item number 4, Homeless Strategy Committee report relative to a plan to address the shelter crisis, report pursuant to Government Code 8698.4, and authority to submit the plan to the State of California.
Thank you, Mr. Reef. All right, are we good to go on consent with those? All right. That will be the order since there are no objections. Thank you so much, which takes us to item 7, please.
Item number 7, motion Weezar Harris Dawson relative to the relocation of the refresh spot to a property located at 544 Town Avenue, Los Angeles, California 90013, and the sublease with Homeless Healthcare of Los Angeles to operate the site.
Thank you so much. So do we have anyone from CLA? Do we need anyone? No, we're good. We're good. All right, so the refresh spot, I want to thank all the advocates for really making your case, not that you needed to prove anything, who have been supportive of finding that new location. And it's going to be at 554 Town Avenue, near the current location. as determined, and I believe Ms. McCall made the case really quite well in terms of what is coming in time for a smooth transition. So those services will not be on hold at all. We'll be able to transition into the new location, serving those who have grown accustomed for all the right reasons to receiving the services through the refresh spots. So I congratulate everyone on that success. And so I think there we are, just approving the location, and it'll go to the full council. That'll be the order. Thank you. So that then takes us to item number 5.
Item number 5, City Administrative Officer transmittal relative to the Comprehensive Homeless Strategy Quarterly Performance Report for the third quarter of fiscal year 2018-19.
Thank you so much, and we welcome our CAO to go over this report.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Susie Rios Bellinat. I work in the office of the City Administrative Officer. This is the third quarterly performance report for fiscal year 18-19, providing the quarterly status update for all 62 active strategies, highlighting key accomplishments and furnishing 60 metrics across 16 strategies. Detailed status updates for each strategy are available in attachment 1 of the report. Highlights of this report include the continued implementation of Proposition HHH, including $243.6 million in commitment letters approved for the 18-19 Round 2 call for projects issued by the Housing and Community Investment Department. This consists of 23 projects with 1,497 total units, about 1,200 of which are supportive. It also includes Proposition HHH, COC and AOC recommendations for the approval of the 1920 PEP for $281 million, funding 27 permanent supportive housing projects consisting of 1,785 units total, about 1,400 of which are supportive. And it also mentions the COC and AOC recommendations for the authority to release the $120 million innovation pilot program. Also mentioned in the report are updates on affordable and supportive housing production in the city. 175 affordable and 766 supportive units were funded by HCID in the Q3, and 429 affordable units and 250 supportive units completed construction. The Transit-Oriented Communities Program, through the Transit-Oriented Communities Program, there were a total of 12,052 pending units, 2,345 of which are affordable. Then a few other highlights. LAHSA is expanding its prevention and problem-solving training for staff and partner agencies and has allocated a portion of their continuum of care HEAP dollars to a flexible problem-solving funding pool for service providers. The Enhanced Comprehensive Homeless Strategy, which came before your committee, was adopted by Council in March 2019. Reporting under this new strategy will begin in Q1 of fiscal year 1920. There's also a quick update on the status of the California Homeless Emergency Aid Program. At the time the report was written, $72 million in HEAP funding commitments had been secured, representing 85% of the total grant, and $3.55 million had been expended as of April 30th. I'd like to just update that number for you to $4.2 million as of May 31st, or 5% of the total grant. And we do anticipate those numbers, those expenditures will continue to increase over the coming months. And then the Bridge Home Initiative, by the end of Q3, we had 860 new interim housing beds funded or under construction. This report also presents metrics for the past 3 quarters in attachments 2 and 3. I'm available if you have any questions.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much, Susie. Meg, anything to answer?
Susie covered it all. I'm just here.
Pretty comprehensive. Thank you so much. A couple of quick questions I have, and I appreciate all of the information contained in these reports and these updates. It really tells the story. It tells the story that the media just seems to refuse to cover, which is very frustrating. But, and that is that we have a really strong methodology for moving forward with our HHH strategy, and real things are happening, and so that's wonderful. The first question I have is, under Strategy 7.0, the length of stay in shelter decreased in time for individuals and families. So what do you attribute that to?
I'd like to defer to our LASA colleagues from whom we received the data for that particular strategy.
Yeah, what are the circumstances that tell that story?
Hi, Jeff Proctor with LASA. So we can do a deeper dive into the data to provide a full report back. One thing that I would highlight is that the number of folks that exited to permanent housing, there was a slight increase from the prior quarter. So we went from 27% of our persons in shelter beds moving into permanent housing to 32%. So part of that decrease could be attributed to more successful exits, but we can try to look into the data to provide a fuller picture of some of the number of reasons that could have attributed to a decrease.
Interesting dynamic, considering that all the talk is not enough available units, but perhaps, there are always going to be exceptions. But yeah, Meg, you were going to...
Well, that could also, those beds that turned over to folks that were moving into permanent housing are now occupied by people who haven't been in the facilities as long. So that could also drag down the average length of stay.
It'll be interesting to see where the trends go on this. Yeah. Because it's really, if you think about it, it's not so out of keeping with some of the trends in the homeless count as well. That kind of makes sense. Another question I have is under Strategy 4F, the percentage of families who retained their housing, there's a decrease as well. So why is that?
So that was actually something we reached out to LASA about because that was striking to us as well. It turns out that they have a data collection error with one of their providers, so they're sorting that out with them. I think it was just a delay in data entry. So they've committed to providing updated numbers on that particular metric for Q4.
Okay, so for Q4. So when might we have that updated information?
So Q4 will end at the end of this month. We'll collect that information from them, and it will be in our Q4 report, which usually comes out about...
We'll go to the, it'll be prepared for the August Homeless Strategy Committee, so that's the last Thursday in August, and then it would come here mid-September.
Oh, okay, so a couple of months.
Yes, would be in this committee, but it'd be available to all of you before that.
We'd be happy to provide the information as soon as we have it from LASA.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, it's just in general, any tweaks that are necessary based on vagaries in the accounting, I think you could cobble them all together, maybe put them in one report, so it gives a more clear picture, because this may not be the only, inconsistency.
Sometimes there are, data inconsistencies or there are reviews that, determine that there was some information omitted. We do make sure that we call it out in the following quarterly report every month because, data is subject to change a little bit when you have so many different strategies you're collecting on.
It's all coming in at various times, and so, yeah.
But we do make sure that we flag that in the report every quarter.
Okay. Terrific. Colleagues, questions or concerns or thoughts? Mike's not going to ask anything today. No, we're good. All right. Well, thank you so much. So we'll note and file the report, and we'll look for the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, council members.
Thank you. We'll go to item 6 now, the quarterly report on HHH. Mr. Reef, please read.
Item number 6, Proposition HHH Administrative Oversight Committee Report relative to the quarterly report for fiscal year 2017-18 and 2018-19, Proposition HHH bond issuances January 1st through March 31st, 2019.
Thank you. All right. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Elise Mattson, Office of the CAO. The report before you today includes the quarterly reports for both the Proposition HHH fiscal year 17-18 and 18-19 bond issuances. We're recommending that this committee receive and file this report inasmuch as no actions are being requested at this time. The quarterly report covers expenditures from January 1st through March 31st, 2019, as well as includes information on prior expenditures from prior quarters. All of the information is in the same format as has been presented in prior quarterly reports. As of this quarter, a total of $46.3 million have been expended from the Prop HHH program overall. This includes $40.4 million from the Prop HHH Permanent Supportive Housing Program, and $5.9 million from the Prop HHH Facilities Program. I can go ahead and turn it over to HSID for their update on the PSH program, and then I can provide an update on the facilities program.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ed Gibson from Housing Community Investment Department. Give you a quick overview. To date, there are 79 projects in the pipeline with commitments representing 5,388 units. 4,120 of those units are supportive housing units, 1,181 are just regular affordable housing units, and 87 are managers' units. To date, there are basically in the pipeline 27 projects that are what we call project labor agreements, so they tend to be over 65 units or more, so those are the larger projects inside the portfolio. I'll let Tim go through the details of the PEP as it relates back to March 31st, because a lot of progress has happened since then as well. So
Great, thank you.
Numbers are old.
Good afternoon, Tim Elliott, Housing and Community Investment. The first bond issuance for 2017-18 had 9 projects. 8 of those are now in construction. The 9th one, the bond resolution went to council yesterday, so that should be closing in the next few weeks. The report said of the second bond issuance that there were 3 projects in construction. That number is now 9. And there's 3 other projects that have closed their loans but haven't started construction just yet. And then the remaining 12 projects are in various states of moving forward. Several applied to the county for No Place Like Home money last week, and that should bridge any remaining gaps that there are. And so we're moving forward with bond issuances on several projects, including the ones on the VA campus in West LA. And those should all, the ones that we've sold bonds for should all be in construction shortly after the first of the year.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so as of the end of the March 31st, it was basically 11 projects under construction, and as Tim was alluding to, to date there are 17 projects under construction representing 1,138 units. So just so you have a context of the difference between the end of March and today.
1138. So of the 1138, 17 that are under construction, when will the last one that's under construction open approximately? What's the target date?
Usually the construction cycle and the closing somewhere about 18 months to 24 months, so it's in that range. We have a chart of all estimates from when we go forward, so it'd be a date-by-date thing, which...
Right, so it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that within 2 years from right now, we'll have 1,138 units operable.
That is a fair statement to make, yes.
And many more before that because of the ones that are currently under construction. And then, so of the 79 projects, the sort of the big picture numbers, 79 projects and all the units, the mix of permanent supportive housing and affordable and the few units of manager, so that totals 5,388.
Correct.
What's the ballpark time frame for 5,388 projects to open, just based on the, you know, the what you've been through with the initial approvals?
Fair enough. So we have the first, at this moment, 17 are literally under construction, with another 3 scheduled to start construction, I'll say within 30 days to 45 days here, somewhere in that range. So that takes out that first, we'll call it that first third or so, if you will. And then I would say the rest, we would give them a year plus another 2 years. Some are still assembling their financing. If everybody remembers, we were the first stop, and we were here to accelerate the process. So if you got a commitment for us to your next stop, kind of you rise to the top much quicker. You rise to the top of the county, you rise to the top of the state now once they have their rounds open. They get those commitments throughout the summer. Once they have everything tied out from their finance commitment, if they're a 4% bond transaction, then once they're ready, we get them in the queue. So it's about getting them in the queue. So I call that at least another 3 years. I apologize. We do have it broken down by project, and every project's very specific date if you ever want to go through that much detail.
Sometime we will, but if all of if you go to that, stick to that 79 number, say the rest of that 79 are in the queue within 3 years, then it's not unreasonable to expect that within 5 or 6 years,
correct,
we could have 5,388 units open and operating and occupied.
Yes.
Not counting what we're going to approve in the final round.
Yeah, those will be another.
That'll be another
round
All right.
out. Just remembering everything really takes about 3 to 5 years from the time we start. So a lot of these are really under with a great deal of guidance, help, assistance from the developer community, and a lot of work internally moving forward. So it is comforting to say all things working out. All of them will be in construction, and a good part of them absolutely will be done within that 5-year time frame that you just mentioned.
Okay.
Yes, because that's.
I'm always thinking in terms of public dissemination of information, in terms of the voter-approved HHH.
And you will see the first units open, come online by the end of the year,
Yeah.
which is still an astounding pace.
Great. And so I've asked this before, but in terms of what you have planned out with the existing HHH dollars, all the eligible projects so far, do you expect any surprises in terms of fully, from our end, funding them?
Well, at this particular moment in time, we have 44 projects in this last application round of money that we have available, which we have at this moment about $216 million available. That number fluctuates based on givebacks and other issues that happen along the way. But we have over 300 and something million in requests.
Right. We got 357 million in requests, so we're very oversubscribed.
It's competitive now, so we're having to go through them. If you met threshold, if you didn't met threshold, we'll take a look at your costs and see where we are in the mix of things. So this last batch is more challenging than the others by far.
And then as we discussed before, so we will basically account for the total 1.2 billion at some point fairly soon.
Correct.
But then we want to keep this process alive and moving forward as these other monies that are expected from the state start rolling in. So we're not going to have a clear picture of what that might look like for a little while.
We won't. So if you look down, so as No Place Like Home from the county starts to come online with the mental, they will be leveraged with the projects that we've already made these early commitments to because we've flooded the pipeline. And then others will go to the state and ask for those funds. If additional funds come in and the match comes up because you're still trying to size your project right, expect some of the HHH funds to come back. When some of the HHH comes back, we turn around and re-leverage it again and we'll get another project out, plain and simple. So I won't say it's simple, but it's straightforward.
So that's
go ahead,
please.
Last week, the county took applications for No Place Like Home, and they told us they got 52 from the city.
Okay.
So I think a total of 70-some. The vast majority were for projects in the city. So as Ed said, that there may be some givebacks, and we may be able to go further into the list. And we provided some incentives for people to do that in this current round. So
it might be helpful if you could do a point-in-time chart of all these moving parts and possibilities, right? I mean, no easy task, but it could be helpful in terms of possibilities based on what we know at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all about the goal setting of getting those units, right? So if you could think about what that could look like, because you have all the information, you just told it to us verbally. If that could be charted out, that could be helpful.
Yeah, I think it is helpful to note that of the 2,100 units that are in these two project expenditure plans, which are arguably the furthest along and the ones we're most certain about the timeline, the latest construction completion date, just from perusing it while we're sitting here, is July 2021. So 2 years from now, all of those units are expected to be completed.
Right.
And that's half of the 5,300 that you were talking about, but
Right.
those are also the ones that we're most certain of the timeline on because they're in the PEPs for the issuances that we've already done.
Right.
Yeah. Timelines are always challenging.
Of course. And they move.
Because they
and
have to
shift.
get the funding in order to, everybody has to do everything.
Well,
right
that's
like
why I
they
said a point in time that it's always, it's always evolving.
Yes. Thank you.
But it could just be helpful because I think maybe I'm not alone in saying this, but we're always scrambling to understand the current numbers and all that. It's a struggle for someone like me, certainly. We all expect this is a very dynamic situation, but it would be helpful when we get inquiries on, well, here's where things are now, So if we could think about what
We'll think
that
about
could
that.
look like, that would be terrific.
And I'll just add that, part of every time you get a deal, you look at the timeline, you look at the other funding sources, how they can tie in, what they're eligible for, and we're trying to do that on the go every minute. And then you have Plan A, and then you have Plan B.
Right.
And then so you run an A, if something happens to A, you're switching over to B, and you're trying to make some adjustments on the fly, whether that works or not, and then you go into Plan C, and you will see that from time to time again. So it is always, I just want you to say, it's always a point in time, and that's why we always feel like you see us running, because we're running to get it there.
Right. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Colleagues, Mr. Harris-Dawson.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your reporting, keeping track of this, especially amidst all the noise that we have around homelessness generally. This is a question for I'm asking for your opinion. I know this is not necessarily something that would be a fact or not. Are there land use or housing policy decisions that we can make now that could speed up these projects that are in the pipeline?
I don't know if there's, the permanent supportive housing ordinance got caught up in litigation, and so everybody's now had to manage around that. TOC's there, so you can get some higher density bonus. The trade-off with that is land costs increased around projects, so it kind of made it difficult for affordable housing developers to actually get access to land at that moment in time. At this particular moment, most projects are on the other side of the land use, particularly if you've been talking to us, because you had to have site control, you had to have some type of plan you're trying to do. We may run into hiccups on Plan Bs and Plan Cs about how you did your original financing plan, and that you might need to change your land use or something in order to make accommodations. So,
building and safety, DWP, anything?
When we have an issue, I make a call and they respond, and I appreciate it very, very much. We will have bigger policy issues about rents and levels of rents absolutely coming up, and where do we want to give flexibility with certain law changes, tax credit changes. You're able to go up to 80% in certain instances from 60 where we are today, and those are all policy conversations that will come before the city.
Thank you.
That's a great question about DWP, because with these projects come the installation of a vault, right, to power it up. Now, in my past experience, that can delay a project by months, and so we have to have a sort of a come-to-Jesus meeting to get everyone aligned. That's just on regular development. So your experience has been good?
It's good. I'm used to it. We're used to the, I apologize, because we're used to the challenge every time there's going to be some type of challenge. I think with the DWP vault this is what happens. You get into an area that doesn't have a great deal of development and it's rather old. I would think the red flags would start to go off in your head as I need to make a trip to DWP to see what the capacity and the load for this project is going to do to the existing system, and let's get ahead of that real quick. That's what I think. Sometimes you don't recognize that in semi-urban areas, which is where they got caught. And I can think of a couple for projects along the way, and then you get staggered by the cost. I think at one moment we'll have to figure out with DWP, how do you help a project who's the first one there having to carry the whole cost? How do they manage that, and is that really fair for that one project to carry costs for everybody else coming forward? That's a conversation to have. I'll give you that. Yes.
All right. Well, that's a great point. I mean, if you start encountering delays because of bureaucratic situations, whether it's DWP or the county or the city, then we can work on that. Yeah. Last thing I have to say or ask, and we can keep going here. Getting people housed in the newly opened HHH projects so that it's not an issue yet because we've only opened the one project and we have a lot, nearly well over 1,000 within 2 years we're going to have. I'm anticipating making sure that there aren't complications with getting people in them that need them, so they're not sitting there waiting for weeks or months vacant.
So for all supportive housing units, they've been using the coordinated entry well before HHH as well. So we've seen that practice go on a great deal. I think some of the challenges that we have is, well, one, let me just say, we coordinate with LASA. Whatever's in our construction pipeline, what's ever coming up, we give them that list so they can see it coming and they can see what the product is and that they're going to have something new to place that in, particularly for HHH really specifically. The other one talks about layering. So when we start to do layering inside of a project and we have too many layers of a particular need, sometimes we start to narrow the box of the population who we could start to serve. And so we've seen from time to time certain types of units have trouble getting leased up. I hope to think, Meg leads some calls that we have with LASA as well, in talking about those types of issues with between the department and LASA. Is that one, telling developers, because they're not necessarily the asset management side of their shop,
Right.
you're chasing the money, but don't overcomplicate your unit. Two, remembering that in certain circumstances, we require chronically homeless units. There'll be a day, hopefully, we don't have to require chronically homeless and everybody's good, but at this moment, there's a portion chronically homeless. If the unit you happen to do chronically homeless is, let's say, a veteran unit that's a family, and you can't find a chronically veteran homeless, then take the chronic off of that one and put it on another one and
Yeah.
fill that one with the homeless veteran family and do not delay.
Right.
So we've had that conversation and working through those issues with LASA, so the coordinated entry system will work even better.
We absolutely need to be very nimble, right?
Yeah.
That's what this is about.
I think that that's that is a very important and probably more frequent example than we would like. And I think the other half of that is making sure that the property managers who are actually filling these units are clear on where the flexibility is of designating units as chronic, like for the example that Ed gave you, that they actually have the ability, they're allowed to do that. And I think a lot of them are very reluctant and worried that there's going to be a consequence on the back end. But having more of a conversation between HSID and LASA, and also reassuring the property managers of where they have flexibility to fill those hard-to-fill units is a big part of what we're doing on those monthly calls about this very issue.
That's great. That's great. I mean, that would be I wouldn't say it's a problem now, but that would be a wonderful problem to have. If our biggest problem is making sure all the managers understand how quickly we can get people in because there's vacancies, that's the kind of problem we want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I know that we opened a path, 38 units 3 months ago or so. They weren't having any trouble getting them occupied really quickly. That wasn't under HHH. That was permanent supportive housing under a different funding source. But that was very successful. And I don't know the details of why, but it was great to see.
Very similar, still coordinated entry, experienced provider who's
coordinated
done
entry.
plenty of lease up.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate each unit.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you. So we will note and file this report, and we really appreciate your great work on this.
Thanks.
And is that it? Wow. Thank you so much. Mr. Reef, I'm sorry I rushed you so terribly. All right. So that completes all the agenda items. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.